The stars looked peaceful through the windows of the UES Vengeance. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the darkness of space stretch out before him. His ship had been out here for 3 weeks now, patrolling the edge of human territory. It was supposed to be a quiet mission. Nothing ever happened this far out. Jake was 47 years old and had spent most of his life in space. His hair had turned gray at the temples, and he had the kind of weathered face that came from years of making hard decisions. He wore his uniform with pride, though it had seen better days. The coffee in his hand had gone cold an hour ago, but he drank it anyway. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Ensign Amy Carter from her station. She was young, maybe 23, with bright eyes that still held wonder when she looked at the stars. This was her first deep space assignment, and she was eager to prove herself. Jake walked over to her console and looked at the readings. "What am I looking at, Ensign?" "Energy signatures, sir, big ones. About 2 million kilometers out." Amy's fingers danced across her screen, pulling up more data. "I've never seen readings like this before." Commander Lisa Harper joined them. She was Jake's second in command, a woman in her late 30s with sharp features and sharper instincts. She had served with Jake for 5 years, and he trusted her completely. "That's not one of ours," she said, studying the data. "The energy pattern is all wrong." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "How big are we talking?" Amy swallowed hard. "Sir, if these readings are correct, there are over 200 ships out there." The bridge went quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at the captain. 200 ships was a fleet. A massive fleet, and it wasn't human. "Battle stations," Jake said calmly. "Lisa, send out a first contact signal on all frequencies. Let them know we're here and we come in peace." Lisa moved quickly to her console. "Sending now, sir." Lieutenant Dan Phillips, the weapons officer, was already at his station. He was a big man with thick arms and a square jaw. He had been a Marine before joining the Navy, and he still had the look of someone who could handle himself in a fight. "All weapon systems ready, Captain." "Should I charge the railguns?" "Not yet," Jake said. "Let's see if they want to talk first." The ship's alarm began to sound, a low, steady tone that sent everyone to their posts. All across the Vengeance, crew members rushed to their stations. In engineering, Chief Pete Rodriguez checked his systems. Pete was 52, had a thick mustache, and could fix anything with enough time and spare parts. He had kept the Vengeance running through ice storms, solar flares, and one very unfortunate encounter with an asteroid field. Minutes passed. The bridge crew watched their screens, waiting for a response. There was none. "Try again," Jake ordered. Lisa sent another message. Then another. Nothing came back. "Captain," Amy said, her voice shaking slightly. "They're moving." "Coming toward us fast." Jake gripped the armrest of his chair. "How fast?" "They'll be in visual range in 5 minutes. All hands, this is the captain." Jake spoke into the ship-wide communication system. "We have unknown vessels approaching our position. This is not a drill. Prepare for possible hostile contact. Stay calm, do your jobs, and trust in your training." He turned to Dan. "Charge the railguns. Bring all defensive systems online." "Yes, sir." Dan's hands moved across his controls. Deep in the ship's hull, massive weapon systems came to life. The railguns were humanity's answer to space combat. Simple kinetic weapons that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. No fancy energy weapons, no complex technology. Just good old-fashioned physics. Lieutenant Greg Mason sat at the tactical station, his eyes glued to multiple screens. Greg was thin and wore glasses, looking more like a teacher than a soldier. But his mind was sharp, and he could process tactical data faster than anyone Jake had ever met. "Captain, I'm getting better readings now. These ships are huge. Some of them are 3 times our size." Lisa looked at Jake. They both knew what that meant. The Vengeance was a destroyer-class ship, already one of the larger vessels in the human fleet. Whatever was coming toward them had serious firepower. "Visual contact in 30 seconds, Amy announced. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The main display flickered to life, and everyone on the bridge sucked in their breath. Space before them was filled with ships, hundreds of them, spread out in a massive formation. They were angular and dark, covered in armor plating that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed on their hulls in a sickly green color. The ships moved together like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. "Mother of God," Dan whispered. A transmission came through. The screen changed, showing an alien face. It was reptilian, with scales that shifted from black to deep purple. Yellow eyes with vertical slits stared out at them. The creature wore some kind of armor with many decorations on it. "I am Supreme Commander Vekthar of the Kralith Dominion," the alien spoke. Somehow the ship's computer translated the words into English. "Your vessel will power down all weapons and surrender immediately. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered 17 species across 40 star systems. You will submit or you will be destroyed." Jake stood up from his chair and walked toward the screen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Vengeance. We are on a peaceful patrol mission in our own territory. We have no wish for conflict, but we will not surrender our ship to anyone." Vekthar's eyes narrowed. "Your territory? This space belongs to the Dominion now. We claim it by right of conquest. You are one ship. We are many. Your defiance is meaningless." Another alien appeared on screen next to Vekthar. This one looked similar but smaller, with fewer decorations on its armor. "Commander, perhaps we should silence Zalren," Vekthar snapped. "This conversation is over. Primitive creatures, you have one of your minutes to comply. Then we will take your ship by force." The screen went dark. Lisa turned to Jake. "Sir, they mean it. We can't fight 200 ships." "No," Jake agreed. "We probably can't, but we're not going to roll over and let them take us either." "How many people have they conquered?" 17 species. Someone needs to show these bastards that humanity doesn't scare easily." "Captain, they'll destroy us," Greg said quietly. Jake smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made his peace with a hard decision. "Maybe, but we'll make them regret it." "Dan, what's our weapons status?" "All systems green, sir." "Railguns charged and ready. Missiles loaded. Point defense systems online. We're as ready as we'll ever be." "Good." Jake sat back down in his chair and gripped the armrests. "Amy, I want you to plot us an evasive course. Use the debris field at Mark 7-2. Make us hard to hit." "Yes, sir." "Greg, coordinate with Dan. I want maximum efficiency on all weapons. Make every shot count." "Understood, Captain." Jake looked at Lisa. "Get Pete on the line. Tell him I need everything he can give me. If we're going to survive this, we'll need every trick in the book." Lisa nodded and opened a channel to engineering. "Pete, the captain needs full power to all systems." Pete's voice came back, heavy with his accent. I heard the alien man on the speakers. "Don't worry, Captain. This old girl has plenty of fight left in her. You just keep us pointed at the bad guys." In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Brooks checked her supplies. She was a calm woman in her 40s with steady hands. She knew that within minutes, she might have wounded crew members to treat. She made sure everything was ready. Back on the bridge, the countdown continued. 30 seconds left, 20, 10. "Captain," Amy said softly. "It's been 1 minute." Jake took a deep breath. "Here we go. All hands, brace for." The Kralith fleet opened fire. Space lit up with green plasma bolts, hundreds of them, all aimed at the Vengeance. The alien ships moved forward, confident in their overwhelming numbers. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake shouted. "Dan, return fire." Amy's hands flew across her controls. The Vengeance's engines roared to life, pushing the ship into a hard turn. Plasma bolts streaked past them, missing by meters. The ship shook as a few hits connected with their shields. Dan pressed his firing controls. The railguns spoke, a deep thrumming sound that echoed through the ship. Tungsten rounds, each one weighing several tons, shot out at a fraction of light speed. They crossed the distance to the Kralith fleet in seconds. The first round hit a Kralith cruiser dead center. The kinetic energy was tremendous. The alien ship's shields flickered and died instantly. The round punched straight through the armor, through the ship, and out the other side. The cruiser exploded in a ball of fire and debris. On the bridge of his flagship, Vekthar watched in shock as more of his ships died. The human weapons were like nothing he had seen before. His shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at such incredible speeds. "Impossible," he roared. "They are primitives. How dare they?" Another Kralith ship exploded. Then another. The human ship was moving fast, dodging their fire while landing devastating hits. Zalren, the sub-commander, checked his displays. "Commander, we've lost 12 ships already. These humans, they fight differently than anyone we've faced before." "They are lucky," Vekthar snarled. "Send in more ships. Crush them." On the Vengeance, Jake allowed himself a small smile. Not bad for primitives.
"Keep firing!"
The battle had just begun. Supreme Commander Vekthar could not believe what he was seeing. 12 of his ships destroyed in minutes by a single vessel. In all his years of conquest, Nothing like this had ever happened. The species he had conquered always folded quickly. They had better technology in some areas, yes, but they lacked the will to fight. They surrendered when they saw his fleet. They begged for mercy. These humans were different. Sub-Commander Zalren, Vekthar said through clenched teeth. Deploy Strike Force Beta, 50 ships. I want that human vessel disabled and boarded. I will question their captain personally before I execute him. Zalren hesitated. He was smaller than Vekthar, younger and less decorated. But he was not stupid. Commander, perhaps we should be more careful. These humans have weapons we do not understand. Their tactics are unusual. Maybe we should... Are you questioning my orders? Vekthar's yellow eyes bore into his subordinate. No, Commander. I am simply advising caution. Your caution is noted and ignored. Send in Strike Force Beta, now. Zalren bowed his head and gave the orders. 50 Kralith warships broke from the main formation and accelerated toward the Vengeance. They spread out in a standard suppression pattern, one that had worked perfectly on every species they had ever fought. They would surround the target, hit it from all sides with plasma fire, overload its shields, and then disable its engines with ion cannons. Simple, effective, proven. On the Vengeance, alarms were ringing. The ship had taken several hits, but the shields were holding. For now. Captain, we have 50 ships breaking off from the main group, Greg announced from his tactical station. They're coming straight for us in a suppression formation. Jake nodded. He had studied military tactics from dozens of Earth's historical battles. He recognized the pattern immediately. Surround and overwhelm. It was a good strategy if your enemy fought the way you expected. They think they can box us in. Let's show them they're wrong. Amy, take us straight toward them. Amy looked back at her captain, eyes wide. Sir, you want me to fly toward them? That's exactly what I want. Full speed. Right down the middle of their formation. Lisa understood immediately. They're expecting us to run or try to dodge. If we charge straight at them, we'll disrupt their entire pattern. Exactly, Jake said. Dan, I want continuous fire as we go through. Hit everything you can, Dan grinned. Now you're talking, Captain. Greg, give me targeting solutions on all hostiles. Greg's fingers flew across his console, feeding data to weapons now. You'll have clean shots on at least 20 targets as we pass through. The Vengeance's engines burned bright as the ship accelerated. It was a big vessel, but it was built for speed and maneuverability. Human engineers had learned long ago that in space combat, being able to move quickly was just as important as having thick armor. The Kralith ships opened fire. Green plasma bolts filled space, all converging on the human ship. The Vengeance's point defense systems came alive. Small automated turrets tracked the incoming fire and shot it down with laser bursts. Not all of it, but enough. The plasma bolts that got through hit the shields, making them flare bright blue. Shields at 70%, Greg called out. They're holding. Forward railguns fire, Dan shouted. The Vengeance's main gun spoke again. 2 Kralith ships exploded as tungsten rounds tore through them. The human ship didn't slow down. It kept accelerating, getting closer and closer to the enemy formation. The Kralith ships began to panic. This wasn't how targets were supposed to behave. They tried to adjust their positions, but they were too close together. The tight formation that was supposed to be their strength became a weakness. The Vengeance shot through the gap between 2 Kralith cruisers. Both of them fired at point-blank range. The human ship's shields flickered and nearly failed, but held. The ship's side-mounted railguns fired back. Both cruisers died instantly, torn apart by the kinetic impacts. We're through, Amy called out, pulling the ship into a hard turn. Keep moving, Jake ordered. Don't let them get a firing solution. Dan, load missiles. Time to show them something else. Down in the weapons bay, crews worked quickly to load the missile tubes. These weren't fancy guided missiles with advanced targeting systems. They were simple, brutal weapons. Each one carried a small nuclear warhead. Humanity had learned to split the atom over 300 years ago, and they had never stopped finding new ways to use that knowledge. Missiles loaded and ready, Dan reported. Fire all tubes. 20 missiles launched from the Vengeance. They shot out in different directions, each one seeking a different target. The Kralith ships tried to shoot them down, but human missiles were fast and small, hard to hit. The first missile reached its target, a Kralith destroyer. It detonated just 50 meters from the ship's hull. The nuclear explosion was brief but intense. In space, there was no air to carry the blast wave, but the radiation and electromagnetic pulse were devastating. The Kralith ship's systems went dark. It drifted dead in space. More missiles hit home. The Kralith shields that had been designed to stop energy weapons did nothing against nuclear explosions. 18 more ships were disabled or destroyed. On his flagship, Vekthar was screaming orders. All ships focus fire on that vessel. Destroy it now! Zalrin watched his screens carefully. Commander, we have lost 30 ships now. The humans are using weapons we have never encountered, these explosive devices, and their solid projectile weapons pierce our shields as if they were nothing. They are primitives. Vekthar slammed his fist on his console. Solid projectiles and atomic explosives? These are ancient technologies. We abandoned such crude weapons thousands of years ago. Yes, Commander, Zalrin said quietly. We abandoned them because we developed better shields and energy weapons. But in doing so, we forgot how to defend against them. The humans have not forgotten. Vekthar turned to glare at his sub-commander. Are you suggesting these primitives are somehow superior to us? No, Commander. I am suggesting they are more experienced at warfare. Look at their ship. It is designed for one purpose only, to fight and destroy other ships. Every system, every weapon, every piece of armor. It is all meant for war. When was the last time we faced an enemy that actually wanted to fight us? Vekthar had no answer for that. The truth was that most species surrendered when they saw the Kralith fleet. The few that did fight usually did so ineffectively, with ships that were meant for exploration or trade, not combat. This human vessel was different. It was a pure warship and its crew knew exactly how to use it. Send in the next wave, Vekthar ordered. 120 ships. I want that human vessel surrounded on all sides. They cannot fight all of them at once. Zalrin gave the orders, though he felt a growing sense of unease. He had a bad feeling about this battle. Something told him they were making a terrible mistake. On the Vengeance, the crew was starting to feel the strain. They had been fighting for almost an hour now. The ship had taken more hits and the shields were down to 40%. Small fires had broken out on 2 decks, but damage control teams had put them out quickly. In engineering, Pete was performing miracles. He rerouted power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. He bypassed damaged circuits and replaced blown fuses. His crew worked alongside him, sweating in the heat from the overworked engines. Captain, Pete's voice came over the communication system. I can give you more power to the railguns, but it will push them past their safety limits. They might overheat. Do it, Jake said without hesitation. We need every advantage we can get. You got it, boss. Pete out. The railguns began firing faster, hitting harder. The recoil from each shot shook the ship, but they were devastating to the Kralith vessels. Dr. Helen Brooks was busy now. 3 crew members had been injured when a plasma bolt had overloaded a power conduit. She treated their burns quickly and efficiently, then sent them back to their posts. In war, everyone was needed. Captain, we have 120 ships incoming, Greg reported. They're trying to surround us. Lisa studied the tactical display. They're learning. This formation is better. They're leaving themselves room to maneuver and keeping their distance. They're going to try to wear us down with long-range fire, Jake thought quickly. The Kralith were adapting. That was bad, but they were still thinking in conventional terms. They expected the Vengeance to try to escape or to find cover. They expected defensive tactics. Amy, plot a course straight into the thickest part of their formation. Best speed, sir? Amy's voice cracked slightly. You heard me, Ensign. Right into the middle of them. Captain, Lisa said carefully. If we go in there, they'll hit us from all sides. We won't be able to dodge all their fire. I know, Jake said. But if we stay out here, they'll just pound us to pieces from long range. At close range, we're more dangerous. Our railguns hit harder. Our missiles are more effective, and they'll have to be careful not to hit each other. Trust me, Lisa. Lisa looked at her captain for a long moment, then nodded. I trust you, sir. All crew, this is the captain. Jake spoke into the ship-wide system. We're going on the attack. Things are about to get rough. Hold on and keep fighting. We're showing these aliens what humanity is made of. Morrison out. The Vengeance turned and accelerated toward the Kralith fleet. Every weapon on the ship was firing. Railguns, missiles, laser point defense. The Vengeance drifted in space, its hull scarred and blackened from plasma burns. Inside the ship, damage control teams rushed from deck to deck, putting out fires and sealing hull breaches. The smell of smoke and melted metal filled the corridors. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge looking at the damage reports on his screen. They were not good. The shields were down to 5% power, and would take hours to recharge fully. 3 of the 6 railgun batteries were damaged and offline. 2 missile tubes were jammed, and they had lost contact with one entire deck because of a power failure. But they were still alive, still fighting. "Captain," Lisa said, walking up to him with a data pad. "Casualty report. 7 dead, 23 injured. Dr. Brooks has stabilized all the wounded. She says they'll make it if we can get them to a proper medical facility." Jake felt the weight of those 7 deaths like a stone in his chest. 7 people under his command who would never go home. But he could not think about that now. Not while the battle was still going on. He would mourn them later when his crew was safe. "What about the Krelith?" he asked. Greg looked up from his tactical station. "They've pulled back to about 500,000 kilometers. They're regrouping. I count 130 ships remaining from their original 200. We took out 70 of them. 70 enemy ships destroyed by 1 human vessel. It should have been impossible, but they had done it. They'll come again," Jake said. "They have too much pride to retreat after we bloodied their nose like this. Lisa, I need options." "We could try to run," Lisa suggested, though her tone made it clear she didn't think much of that idea. "Jump to faster than light and head back to human space. Get reinforcements. They'll chase us," Jake said. "And if they follow us back to our colonies, we'll lead them right to civilian targets." "No, we need to finish this here." "Finish it," Amy said from her navigation console. "Captain, how can we finish this? There are still 130 of them and only one of us." Jake smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. "Ensign, you know the old saying? It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. We've already proven we can hurt them. Now we just need to hurt them so badly they think twice about ever messing with humanity again." Pete's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, this is engineering. I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is I can get the shields back up to maybe 30% in about 20 minutes. The bad news is the engines are running hot. Real hot. We push them much harder and we might blow a coolant line. Do your best, Pete. We need everything you can give us." "Always do, Captain." Pete out. Dan turned from his weapons console. "Sir, I have an idea. It's a bit crazy, but it might work." "Crazy seems to be working for us so far," Jake said. "Let's hear it." "The Krelith shields can't stop our railgun rounds, right? They're designed for energy weapons. But they're learning. I saw on the tactical readouts that their last formation had the ships spacing further apart. They're trying to avoid our close-range attacks. Go on. What if we don't get close? What if we use our railguns at extreme range? We can calculate the trajectory, account for their movement, and snipe them from a distance. They won't expect it because their energy weapons lose power over long distances. But our kinetic rounds don't. They just keep going until they hit something." Greg sat up straight. "That could work. I can feed targeting data to the weapon systems. With the ship's computer helping with the calculations, we might be able to hit targets up to 1,000,000 kilometers away." "That's a long shot," Lisa said. "Literally. But if it works, we can hit them before they can effectively hit us," Dan argued. "Their plasma weapons lose cohesion over distance. Ours don't." Jake thought about it for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. Greg, work with Dan. Get me those firing solutions. Amy, plot us a course that keeps us at extreme range. Keep us moving so they can't predict our position." "Yes, sir." The crew jumped into action. Over the next 20 minutes, while Pete and his team worked to restore the shields, Greg and Dan prepared their surprise. They ran calculations, checked trajectories, and loaded the 3 working railgun batteries with fresh ammunition. Meanwhile, on the Krelith flagship, the mood was dark. Vekthar sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. 70 ships lost, 70, and to 1 primitive vessel. The shame was overwhelming. When word of this got back to the Dominion Council, his career would be over. He might even face execution for such a massive failure, unless he could destroy that human ship and salvage something from this disaster. "Sub-Commander Zalren," he said, his voice cold and controlled. "Prepare all remaining ships for a final assault. We will overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Every ship will fire at once. I do not care if we turn that human vessel into atoms. I want it destroyed." Zalren looked worried. "Commander, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans have proven to be far more dangerous than we anticipated. Maybe we should negotiate. Try to find a peaceful solution." "Negotiate?" Vekthar's voice rose. "Negotiate with primitives who have humiliated us? Never! We are the Krelith Dominion! We have conquered 17 species. We do not negotiate with food. But Commander, silence! Give the order or I will find someone who will. Zalrin bowed his head. Yes, Commander. All ships prepare for final assault. Attack pattern Omega. All weapons fire on my mark. The Kralith fleet began to move forward again, forming up into a massive wall of ships. They would come in all at once, firing everything they had. It was a brutal, simple strategy, but with 130 ships it should be enough to overwhelm even the tough human vessel. On the Vengeance, alarms started ringing again. Captain, they're coming, Greg announced. All of them. They're in an attack formation. Range? Jake asked. 800,000 kilometers and closing. Perfect. Dan, are we ready? Firing solutions locked in on 12 targets. Computer is tracking their movements and constantly updating the trajectories. Then let's give them a surprise. Fire when ready. Dan pressed his controls. The 3 working railgun batteries fired in sequence, one after another. The tungsten round shot out into space, invisible in the darkness. They would take several minutes to reach their targets at this range. The Kralith fleet continued to advance, unaware of what was coming. They were focused on getting into range with their plasma weapons. None of them expected an attack from such a distance. The first round hit a Kralith cruiser on the port side. The ship never saw it coming. The kinetic impact punched through the armor and detonated the ship's power core. It exploded in a brilliant flash. 3 more hits followed in quick succession. 3 more Kralith ships died or were crippled. The alien fleet suddenly stopped advancing, confused and alarmed. Reload and fire again, Jake ordered calmly. Keep hitting them. Don't give them time to think. The rail guns fired again. And again. Each volley took out more enemy ships. The Kralith tried to figure out where the attacks were coming from, but by the time they located the Vengeance, it had moved to a new position. This is brilliant, Lisa said, watching the tactical display. They can't hit us at this range, but we can hit them. It's like having a rifle when they only have pistols. How long can we keep this up? Jake asked. Greg checked his data. We have enough ammunition for maybe 40 more shots. After that, we're down to missiles and close-range weapons. Then we make every shot count. Dan, prioritize their larger ships. Take out their command vessels if you can identify them. On it, Captain. The battle had become a turkey shoot. The Vengeance would fire, then move. Fire and move. The Kralith ships started trying to dodge, but they were too slow and too large. The human targeting computers could predict their movements with frightening accuracy. Bekthar was in a state of panic. How are they hitting us from such range? This is impossible. Our sensors say they are using solid projectiles. Such weapons should not be accurate at this distance. Zalrin studied his screens. They're computers, Commander. They are using advanced calculation systems to predict our movements and adjust their trajectory. And their weapons do not lose power over distance like ours do. They are using basic physics against us. Then we close the distance. All ships maximum speed. Get into range where we can fight back. The Kralith fleet surged forward, but they were taking casualties with every passing minute. More ships exploded or were disabled. The formation began to break apart as ships tried desperately to avoid the invisible death that struck from the darkness. On the Vengeance, the crew was starting to feel hopeful. They were winning. Actually winning against an enemy fleet that outnumbered them more than 100 to 1. But Jake knew better than to get overconfident.
How many have we taken out?
He asked. 42 ships destroyed or disabled from this attack run, Greg reported. They're down to less than 90 now. And they're getting closer. Amy, how long until they're in effective range? 5 minutes, Captain. Then we switch tactics. Dan, load all remaining missiles, nuclear and conventional. When they get close, we hit them with everything at once. Overwhelm their defensive systems. In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Brooks finished treating the last of the wounded. A young crew member named Kevin had burns on his hands from a power surge. She bandaged them carefully and gave him. The Kralith fleet had retreated, but they had not gone far. They regrouped at a distance, licking their wounds and trying to make sense of what had just happened to them. Supreme Commander Vekthar sat in his command chair, his pride wounded as badly as his fleet. He had never lost a battle before. Never. And now he had lost more than half his ships to a single primitive vessel. The thought burned in his mind like acid. Sub-Commander Zalren approached him carefully. Vekthar had not spoken for nearly an hour, just staring at the tactical displays. The silence was uncomfortable. Finally, Zalren cleared his throat. Commander, we should return to Dominion space. Regroup with other fleets. Report what we have learned about these humans and... No. Vekthar's voice was quiet but hard as stone. We are not returning in defeat. Not like this. If we go back now, I will be executed for failure. You know this as well as I do. Better to be executed than to lose the entire fleet, Commander. These humans are not like any enemy we have faced. They are not afraid of us. They do not surrender. They fight with weapons we have never seen and tactics we cannot predict. Vekthar stood up from his chair and walked to the main viewing screen. In the distance, they could see the debris field from the battle, dozens of his ships destroyed. They are still just one ship, one damaged ship. If we attack with everything we have remaining, attack from all sides at once, they cannot possibly survive. They have survived everything else we have thrown at them, because we have been cautious. Vekthar slammed his fist on the console. Because we have underestimated them, but no more. We will show no mercy, no hesitation. We will destroy them, or die trying. Zalrin felt a chill run through him. This was not tactical thinking. This was revenge. Vekthar had been humiliated, and now he was willing to sacrifice everything to restore his honor. Commander, please reconsider. There is no shame in retreating against a superior enemy. Superior? Vekthar turned to face him, eyes blazing. They are primitives. They use solid metal as weapons. They explode atoms for propulsion. They are centuries behind us in technology. And yet they are winning. The words hung in the air between them. Vekthar's face twisted with rage, but he did not strike his sub-commander. Instead, he took a deep breath and forced himself to be calm. Give the order. All remaining ships will attack the human vessel simultaneously. Every direction, every weapon. We will not stop firing until that ship is nothing but vapor. Zalrin wanted to argue more, but he knew it was useless. Vekthar had made his decision. The sub-commander could only hope that some of them would survive what was coming. He gave the orders. 88 Krelith warships turned and began moving toward the Vengeance. They spread out in a perfect sphere, surrounding the human ship completely. There would be no escape, no clever maneuvers, just raw firepower from every direction. On the Vengeance, alarms started blaring again. The crew, who had been taking a brief rest and making repairs, rushed back to their battle stations. Captain, they're coming back, Greg announced. All of them. They're forming a sphere around us. Jake looked at the tactical display and felt his stomach sink. This was bad. Really bad. They had no way to defend against attacks from all directions at once. The shields were barely functional. Ammunition was almost gone and his crew was exhausted. How long until they're in range? He asked. 10 minutes, sir. Jake turned to Lisa. Options? She studied the tactical display for a long moment, then shook her head. We're surrounded. If we try to break through in any direction, we'll take fire from every other direction. Our shields won't hold. We could try to surrender, but no. Jake's voice was firm. No surrender. These aliens have conquered 17 species. They don't take prisoners, they take slaves. I won't let my crew become slaves. We fight. Captain, Amy said quietly, we can't fight all of them, not like this, we're out of missiles. The railguns are almost out of ammunition, the shields are failing. Her voice broke. We can't win this one. Jake looked at his young navigation officer. She was right, of course. By any logical calculation, they were about to die. But he had not gotten this far by accepting defeat. Amy, did you know that humans have been fighting wars for over 10,000 years? We've faced impossible odds before. Sometimes we lost, but sometimes we found a way to win anyway. Through courage, through cleverness, through sheer stubborn refusal to give up. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. I'm not going to lie to you. The next few minutes are going to be the hardest of your lives. But I need you to trust me one more time. I need you to fight like you've never fought before. Can you do that? One by one, they nodded. Dan straightened at his weapons console. Greg's fingers moved across his tactical display. Amy gripped her controls. They were terrified, but they were ready. Good. Jake sat down in his captain's chair and thought hard. They needed something unexpected, something the Kralith wouldn't see coming. But what? They were out of tricks, out of ammunition, out of options. Unless, Pete, Jake opened a channel to engineering. How much power can you give me to the engines? Everything, every last bit. Pete's voice came back immediately. Captain, the engines are already running past their safety limits. If I give you more power, they might explode. Might? Okay, they will probably explode. But if you really need it, I can give you maybe 2-3 minutes of maximum power. After that, we're dead in space. That's all I need. Stand by. Jake closed the channel and looked at Amy. Ensign, when I give the word, I want maximum acceleration straight down. Use every bit of power Pete gives us. Don't worry about the G-forces, the inertial dampeners will handle it. Sir, straight down into what? There's nothing below us but empty space. Exactly. They'll be expecting us to try to break through their formation. They'll have most of their weapons pointed at the edges of their sphere. But down? They won't be ready for that. We'll punch through the bottom of their formation before they can adjust their fire. Lisa understood immediately. And once we're through, we keep going. Use the debris field for cover. It's not much, but it might give us a few extra seconds. Greg, I need you to identify their flagship, Jake continued. Dan, we have maybe 10 rounds left for the railguns, right? 12, sir. When we make our run, I want all 12 rounds fired at their flagship. If we're going down, we're taking their commander with us. The Kralith fleet was now in position. 88 ships arranged in a perfect sphere around the Vengeance. Every weapon was charged and ready. Vekthar smiled coldly. All ships on my mark, he said. Fire everything. Do not stop until that ship is destroyed. Back on the Vengeance, Jake took one last look at his crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. They had come too far to give up now. Pete, give me everything. Here we go. Pete's voice was strained. In engineering, he and his crew pushed the engines beyond their absolute limits. The whole ship began to vibrate. Now, Amy, go. Amy slammed her controls forward. The Vengeance dropped like a stone, accelerating downward at speeds that should have been impossible for a ship that size. The G-forces pressed everyone back in their seats, but the inertial dampeners kept them conscious. All weapons fire, Vekthar screamed. The Kralith fleet opened fire. Thousands of plasma bolts streaked toward where the Vengeance had been, but the human ship was already gone, dropping through the bottom of their formation so fast that most of the Kralith gunners missed completely. The few shots that did hit only struck the ship's top armor, which was the thickest part. Target acquired, Greg shouted. Flagship identified, fire, Jake commanded. The Vengeance's remaining railguns spoke for the last time. 12 tungsten rounds shot upward at the Kralith flagship as the human ship fell past it. Vekthar's vessel tried to dodge, but it was too big, too slow. 9 of the 12 rounds hit home. The flagship shuddered as kinetic rounds tore through it. The bridge exploded. The engines died. The massive ship began to drift, powerless and burning. Vekthar had time for one final thought before the end came. These humans, these primitives, had beaten him. It seemed impossible, but it was true. Then everything went dark. Their flagship is destroyed, Greg reported. The command ship is gone. Keep moving, Jake ordered. Don't slow down. The Vengeance shot through the debris field from the earlier battle. Chunks of destroyed ships pinged off the hull. Behind them, the Kralith fleet was in confusion. Their commander was dead. Their formation was broken. Ships were colliding with each other as they tried to pursue the human vessel. But the Vengeance's engines were dying. Red warning lights flashed all across engineering. The temperature was critical. The coolant system was failing. Pete knew what was coming. Captain, I'm shutting down the engines before they explode, he shouted into his communicator. We're going to drift. Do it, Jake replied. The engines went silent. The Vengeance coasted forward on momentum alone, disappearing into the debris field. Without engines, they were hard to track. Just another piece of metal floating in space. On what remained of the Kralith fleet, Zalren found himself in command. He sat in the command chair of his own ship, watching the chaos on his screens. Over 100 ships lost, the Supreme Commander dead, and the human vessel had escaped into the debris field. He could order his ships to search for them, hunt them down. Finish what? 3 months had passed since the battle. The U.S. Vengeance limped through space at sublight speeds, making its slow way back to human territory. The ship was a wreck. Its hull was patched in dozens of places with whatever materials Pete and his engineering team could find. Half the systems were offline, but it was moving, and its crew was alive. Life aboard the damaged ship had settled into a routine. The crew worked in shifts to keep the essential systems running. They ate together in the mess hall, sharing stories about the battle. Some of them had nightmares. Some couldn't sleep at all. Dr. Helen Brooks was kept busy treating not just physical injuries, but the mental ones as well. Captain Jake Morrison spent most of his time on the bridge or in his small quarters, writing detailed reports about everything that had happened, every tactical decision, every weapon fired, every weakness they had discovered in Krelith technology. He knew this information would be vital to Earth's military planners. One day, as Jake sat in his quarters reviewing data, Lisa knocked on his door. "Come in," he called out. Lisa entered with a data pad in her hand. She looked tired but excited. "Captain, we just received a transmission from Earth Command. It took 3 months to reach us because we're so far out, but you need to read this." Jake took the pad and began reading. His eyes grew wider with each sentence. Earth Command had received their initial report about the Krelith encounter. The response had been swift and massive. 5 full battle fleets had been assembled and sent to the Outer Rim, 32 warships including 2 of Earth's newest Dreadnought-class vessels. They were coming to establish a permanent human presence in this region of space, but that wasn't all. The report continued with information that made Jake's head spin. The news about the Krelith battle had spread across human space like wildfire. Jake Morrison and the crew of the Vengeance were being called heroes. Songs were being written about them. Children were playing games pretending to be the crew fighting against alien invaders. The government was talking about medals and honors. Jake struggled to find words. This is too much. We were just doing our jobs. You saved humanity's reputation, Lisa said with a smile. The first time we meet an alien empire and we bloody their nose so badly they run away. That means something, Captain. It means humans are not easy prey. It means we matter. Jake set down the data pad and rubbed his tired eyes. 7 people died on this ship, Lisa. 7 good people. Are they getting songs written about them too? Yes, sir, they are. Earth Command has already declared them all heroes. Their families are being taken care of. Scholarships set up in their names. They won't be forgotten. That made Jake feel a little better. At least their sacrifice was being honored properly. Over the following weeks, more transmissions came in from Earth. The battle fleets had arrived at the Outer Rim and established defensive positions. They were building space stations and setting up sensor networks. Humanity was digging in and making it clear that this space belonged to them, but something else was happening too. Something the humans had not expected. They were receiving communications from other species. The 17 species that the Krelith had conquered were reaching out in secret, asking questions about the humans. About their weapons. About their tactics. About whether humanity might be willing to help them. In the Krelith Dominion, the mood was dark. Sub-Commander Zalrin, now promoted to Supreme Commander after Vekthar's death, stood before the Dominion Council. The council was made up of 5 of the oldest and most powerful Krelith leaders. They did not look happy. "Explain to us," one of the council members hissed, "how you lost over 110 ships to a single primitive vessel." Zalrin had prepared for this question. He had spent weeks preparing his report, making sure every detail was accurate. Honored council members, the humans are not primitives. They appear primitive because they use older technologies, but they use them with devastating effectiveness. Their weapons are designed specifically for space warfare. Their ships are built with redundancy and armor that makes them incredibly hard to destroy. And their crews, he paused. Their crews do not fear death the way our enemies usually do. They fight with a ferocity we have never encountered. Another council member leaned forward. "We have watched the tactical recordings from your ships. These humans use kinetic weapons, explosive devices, simple technologies that we abandoned millennia ago." "Yes, Honored One, and that is precisely why they are so effective against us. Our shields were designed to stop energy weapons. We have become so specialized in one type of warfare that we forgot how to defend against others. The humans have not forgotten. They have thousands of years of experience fighting wars among themselves. They understand warfare in a way we do not, the council members murmured among themselves. Finally, the eldest one spoke. What do you recommend, Supreme Commander Zalren? Peace, Zalren said simply. We should open diplomatic channels with humanity, establish trade relations, perhaps even an alliance. The alternative is war, and I do not believe we can win such a war. Not with the forces we currently have. You would have us bow to primitives, I would have us survive, Honored One. I have seen what one human warship can do. Imagine what 100 could do. Or 1,000. The humans have just entered the galactic stage. They will grow stronger. Better to make them friends now than enemies later. The council was silent for a long moment. Then the eldest member nodded slowly. We will consider your recommendation. In the meantime, all Kralith ships are to avoid human space. We will observe them from a distance, learn more about them, and then we will decide. Zalren bowed. It wasn't the strong commitment to peace he had hoped for, but it was a start. The Kralith would not attack humanity again, at least not yet. On other worlds, the conquered species were talking among themselves. They had heard the story of the human ship that fought an entire Kralith fleet and survived. The story had grown in the telling. Some versions said the humans had destroyed 200 Kralith ships. Some said the human vessel had been tiny, barely larger than a fighter craft. The details varied, but the core message was the same. Resistance was possible. The Kralith could be beaten on a world called Praxis, a species that looked like tall, thin birds gathered in secret. They had been under Kralith rule for 30 years. They had tried to rebel once long ago, but had been crushed brutally. Since then, they had lived in submission, mining resources for their Kralith masters. Do you think it's true? One of them asked. Could these humans really have defeated a Kralith fleet? The Kralith would not lie about a defeat, another answered. It hurts their pride too much. If they admit to losing ships, it must be true. Then perhaps we should reach out to these humans. Ask for their help. That is dangerous. If the Kralith found out, they would execute us all. Living like this is already a kind of death. At least if we try, there is hope. Similar conversations were happening on 16 other worlds. The news of humanity's victory had given them something they had not had in years. Hope. Back on the Vengeance, Jake received another transmission. This one was different. It was a personal message from the President of Earth. Jake watched the recorded message in his quarters. The President, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and kind eyes, spoke directly to him. Captain Morrison, on behalf of all humanity, I want to thank you and your crew for what you have done. You faced an enemy that had conquered 17 civilizations and you sent them running. You have shown the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with. When you return home, you and your crew will be awarded the Medal of Valor, the highest honor our military can bestow. But more importantly, you have ensured that our children and grandchildren will inherit a galaxy where humans are respected, where we have a place. Thank you, Captain. Thank you all. The message ended. Jake sat in silence, feeling the weight of those words. He had not set out to change the course of human history. He had just been trying to protect his ship and crew. But somehow, in doing that, he had done something much bigger. A few weeks later, they finally encountered the Earth battle fleet. 5 fleets worth of ships appeared on their sensors, moving to escort them home. It was an impressive sight. The new dreadnoughts were massive, twice the size of the Vengeance and bristling with weapons. There were carriers launching fighter craft, cruisers on patrol, destroyers in formation. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled in one place. The fleet's commander, Admiral Patricia Clark, sent a personal message to the Vengeance. Her face appeared on Jake's screen. She was a stern-looking woman with short dark hair and piercing blue eyes. Captain Morrison, it's an honor to finally meet you. Your tactical data has been invaluable. We've already begun retrofitting our weapons based on what you learned about the Kralith. You've given us a real advantage. Welcome home, Captain. Thank you, Admiral, Jake replied. Though home is still a long way off. We'll get you there safely. You've earned it. The journey back to Earth with the fleet escort took another 2 months. During that time, Jake got to know some of the other ship captains. They all wanted to hear first-hand accounts of the battle. They wanted to know everything about the Kralith. Their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. Jake shared everything he knew.